We welcome in 32. Oh, look at that face. Look at that face. A very young James Ham joining us here, our 1320. At least I think that is James Ham joining us.
What happened?
On
No Shave November is over. Yeah.
Well, you haven't shaved in like all year.
I'm one of the few people that can shave 15 years off their face. Yeah.
Wow. I remember one time I remember one time I shaved the beard off and I was like, I ain't doing this no more.
Yeah.
It don't look right.
What's going on? Maybe James knows what did come first, the chicken or the egg. Like how did the Kings' joy resulting in wins, or the wins resulting in joy?
That's a good question. I think the wins resulted in joy, and they've capitalized. I mean, honestly, what they've been able to do with some of their promotional stuff has just been off the charts. And like whoever's in charge of all that stuff, kudos. They've done a really good job of connecting this team with the fan base, and that's the first time that I've seen them do this in a long, long time. So I'm really happy for everybody involved, because I really do think that they're making some strides here.
Hey, when was the first time they lit the beam? Do we remember what game that was?
That's a good question.
So it was game 5, wasn't it?
So they've done it from the start? I didn't think they did it from the start.
It's been an all year thing, yeah.
Okay.
It's just they lost their first 4. So it's not something like we were really able to like get behind. But I was told like at the Portland game, hey, when we win, we're
right. I do remember hearing that.
Yeah, we're gonna have this beam that lights from the that shoots up to the sky.
Well, ironically enough, when they got that win, that was a 2:00 Saturday start before daylight savings time. So they could have lit it, and we didn't see it for hours.
It's very possible.
It's pretty amazing. Every time I get out of the arena, it's late. It's a little after 11 usually, and you walk by and there's the beam, and it looks cool. I guess, on Sunday, we've had a lot of early Sunday games, which, I hate because I love to watch football, but I love because they serve breakfast for lunch, and I'm a big breakfast for lunch guy, which I'm known around the arena as a breakfast for lunch guy. So it's always one of those things where you're like you walk outside, there's fans all over the place. You look up and there it is, you're like, look at that. And it shoots way up into the sky. It's really cool.
Breakfast is literally great anytime.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter, early in the morning, middle of the day, for dinner, late at night, doesn't matter. Breakfast is perfect.
I agree.
Do you have M&Ms and cranberry juice for breakfast too?
No. Although, like, the funny thing about that, like if I said yes, well, I do have cranberry juice, but I usually try to go OJ. But if I said, yeah, man, I have me some M&Ms this morning during breakfast, what would you say? What do you think? And what do you think the majority of people would say? Like, yeah, I have me some M&Ms for breakfast.
Well, we, the Chatty House, would say that tracks. That makes sense. That's Kenny. I'm not sure what answer you're looking for, other than why would you eat candy for breakfast?
Okay, there's that. And the same people will be like, you're such a child. So I went to Bob's Donuts this morning, and
donuts a piece of cake. I talk about that all the time. Like, we just renamed a piece of cake a donut and called it breakfast.
And they would get on me, which I don't. I don't really like candy. I don't even really like donuts that much in the morning. But they would get on me or anybody for eating candy first thing in the morning. But they would go to a donut shop.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference?
Well, one, you eat coffee. I don't know. I don't know.
No difference.
I firmly believe pastries are nothing but dessert that we've repurposed for breakfast.
I don't have a problem with it either.
I don't eat breakfast. I'm not a big breakfast guy. I have a cup of coffee. That's what I usually have in the morning.
But your favorite meal is breakfast. You said you're a breakfast for lunch guy.
I'm a breakfast for lunch guy, but I'm not a breakfast for breakfast guy. I don't like to get up and eat breakfast.
I know a lot of people like that, actually. They love breakfast food. They just don't eat it in the morning. They'll eat it later. You're listening to Low and Casey on KIFM West Sacramento, 98.5 FM KRXQ HD2 Sacramento, ESPN 1320, driven by Lasher's Elk Grove Dodge. always live on the free Odyssey app, live on twitch.tv/ESPN1320 and youtube.com/ESPN1320 as well. You can follow us at ESPN1320 on Twitter. James, we just played your Q&A with De'Aaron Fox just right before you joined us, of De'Aaron talking about how other guys step up and how this roster collectively just seems to work in sync together.
Yeah, actually, I just wrote on it. It'll be going up at the King's Beat just here in a few minutes, maybe even while I'm on the show here. I never know these things. That's what the editor wife, she takes care of that kind of stuff. But when you look at the way that this team is coming together, I think it's really interesting because a lot of these players are young players. They're struggling to figure out who and what they are. We saw it with Davion Mitchell early in the season where he was really, really struggling. And it wasn't that he was playing so poorly or that his stats were so horrible. It was just you looked out on the court and he looked uncomfortable. And whatever Mike Brown is doing, he has this team buying in 100% to what he's selling. And again, it doesn't matter how many conversations I have with Chimezie Metu. Chimezie Metu is an extremely confident young man. He thinks he can do everything on the court. If he's not watching what he's doing right now as a player, then I'm bummed out for him because he's missing it. He's turning from a player who is still trying to tell everybody that he can average 20 and 10 to a player who is a functional NBA player that will stay in the league a long time. And that's what you hope for young players, that this epiphany goes off at some point. And right now, it feels like it's happening for KZ. It feels like it's happening for Terrence Davis when he gets a shot. It feels like it's happening for Davion and for Chimezie. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing to watch this happen because this team can't win with just 6 players. Especially, we've seen it. This team can't win with 6 players when 2 or 3 of them have a bad night. They need these other guys to come in there and just do their job. They don't have to do something extraordinary. But Chimezie Metu averaging, putting up 10 points, grabbing 6 rebounds, 8 rebounds, that makes a difference. And, he's playing good defense. You're getting good defense out of Okpala and Mitchell, that combo that Mike Brown has kind of stumbled upon here out of nowhere. They're just shutting guys down out of nowhere. And all of a sudden this team is number 16 in the league in defense. So, yeah, a lot of good that's happening right now. That's not just whether De'Aaron Fox is scoring or not, or Sabonis is putting up a triple-double, or Barnes is waking up. It's a lot of the other guys that are doing work too.
It's interesting that you bring up Davion Mitchell because I was watching the game last night, and I was just watching the game. I was watching how it played out, and then I saw Davion Mitchell's season averages, and he's averaging 6.7 points, 2.3 assists a night, compared to last year, 11.5 points, 4.2 assists. Now this year he's playing 19 minutes as opposed to 27 minutes a night last year. But I say all this to say I think people will look at the numbers and feel like Davion has been down or fallen off a cliff this year. And like you just said, it may have taken a little while, but you talk about the last 10, 12 games or whatever. I really like what he's providing this team. I think he's trending upward. I think he's playing well. And I think it kind of goes beyond the numbers, what he's doing and falling into a rhythm and a role with this team. I absolutely like the way he's been playing. Do you kind of feel the same way about his game as of late, or does he need to pick it up a little bit more?
No, with him, you take the numbers, you crumple them up, and you throw them away. I don't care. I think he of course could shoot the ball a little bit better, but outside of that, I don't care what his assist and scoring numbers are. He's coming in and doing an incredible job against top-notch players and trying to slow things down. And that's what this team needs. He is filling a void. And I think what he even said it last night, what he's learning very quickly is if he wants to stay on the court, that's what he does. He doesn't have to go score points. And the same thing, look, KZ Okpala is one of those guys that, we don't expect anything offensively from him at all. And that works if the other 4 guys are scoring on the court with him. But all of a sudden we're seeing him being a sneaky good little take advantage player. You have to guard him. He makes really, really hard cuts. He's ready to fire when the ball comes to him. and he's had a couple of nice layups. He scored in I think the last 4 or 5 games, he scored in every game. And it doesn't mean that he's scoring 8 points or 10 points or 20, but just the fact that you have to defend him and you have to stick with him. And then you can throw him on Devin Booker. You can throw him on DeMar DeRozan. You can throw him on Buddy Hield or Tyrese Halliburton. You can throw him on anyone that you want because he can defend 1 through 4 without any problems. And it's really impressive. You just needed that other little ingredient where he's moving and being active, and the players around him are so active that it doesn't matter if he's scoring or not. And so, again, I think it's really impressive for all these guys to kind of get in the flow and to sacrifice for each other, because that's what a lot of this is.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like there is an ego on this team. And if there is, it's not showing itself on the basketball floor at all. I mean, Domantas Sabonis, he shot the ball 4 times yesterday, James. 4. Like, that's insane.
It's insane, but he posted his first triple-double of the season, which is a really weird thing because he had got to 10 assists. They took an assist away. The game ends. The final box all of a sudden magically has an extra assist, and we have to go back and, make corrections in post-game. Just really, really impressive the way that he impacts the game without having to do that. I mean, what do you have, like 17 rebounds?
Yeah.
He's just a workhorse, and every night you're going to need something different from these guys. And I'll also point out, too, like we talk about all of the little things that keep happening with this team. And I heard it on Twitter when the Kings were blowing. Who did they blow out the game before?
The Clippers.
Oh, yeah, the Clippers, right? Someone kept saying, why is Keegan Murray shooting? And I said, he's got to shoot because if he doesn't shoot, it destroys the whole flow of everything, right? Even if he's not hitting, he's got to keep shooting. And then people are, why is he still in the game in the fourth quarter? Well, because he found himself, and all of a sudden his confidence is there. Like, it just takes sometimes that little bit, that an extra 4 or 5 minutes on the court for someone to go, okay, I'm back. I feel the confidence back. And all of a sudden you start seeing him firing. We've forgotten about, the milk carton games from Harrison Barnes. He's looking like he's back and going. Kevin Huerter's having a little downturn. De'Aaron Fox is having a little downturn, but it doesn't matter because this team is built with, 8 to 10 guys who are really, everyone is contributing and everyone's doing something to help the team win.
I was telling Damian earlier, I watched that game last night, was following the game last night. I never once thought they were going to lose. And that's such a far cry from recent years, right? At least how many times did we see the Kings, get out to a good lead and still end up find a way to blow in the game? I never not once thought they were going to win that game. Did you have that feeling last night?
No, I never thought they were going to lose. Like, I'm really impressed by the fact that I don't think this point in this season they've lost to anyone that they should not have lost to. They've beat every single time you go up against a team that you think, okay, the Kings should get this game. Well, that was fool's gold the last 5 years. Every time you thought, oh man, they've got this one in the bag, we can let off the gas a little bit. That's exactly what the team did, and they got beat. This year, they walk into every single game. They're competitive against the teams that maybe they shouldn't beat, and then the teams that they should beat, they're beating them. They're putting them away. They're finding ways, and that's one of the most impressive things about this run is they've had a very difficult schedule. There's not even that many games like that on the schedule so far, and you got the 6-game road trip coming up that could just demolish anybody. Like, it doesn't matter what team it is in the league. It's just absolutely brutal. What, Milwaukee, Cleveland, New York, Philadelphia, Toronto, and Detroit, right? Like, if you get into that, there might be 2 of those games where we say, oh, that's a team you should beat. But they're like right in the middle of a crazy stretch, and the last game of a 6-game road trip is Detroit. So even those games, you crumple up and throw the what should and could and all that stuff out the window. And that's, I think the impressive thing is going into that first game in Milwaukee, this team thinks they can win. Going into the next game, they think they can win, and they haven't backed down. So, yeah, I like what's happening so far.
And I think one of the great things about this road trip coming up is I feel like they can compete with anyone. I think that's what this season has shown us so far is they're capable of competing with and they're capable of beating anybody. That doesn't mean they're better than the Milwaukee Bucks. It doesn't mean that they're better than the Philadelphia 76ers, but they can beat the Milwaukee Bucks. We just noted the San Antonio Spurs last win was November 11th.
Jeez.
Against the Bucks. Like, even without Giannis Antetokounmpo and Chris Middleton, the Bucks are still better than the San Antonio Spurs. But like, if the Kings are capable of winning games, they're capable of beating good teams. And it's a tough road trip. I know everyone wants to, set records and, what's the worst that they can come back with? What would you be happy with? Go out there and compete because they've shown they're not going to fold. If this road trip doesn't go well, it's not like they're going to fold when they get home. Like they're in a good place right now.
Yeah, they're kind of built for that, right? They're kind of like it because you don't have one player who's scoring 30 something a night and you're completely reliant on one player's scoring ability, then you can win in all kinds of different ways. And this team has at least, man, what do they have? 6 guys that can put up 30 on you at any time. Like, that's scary when you're game planning for a team like the Kings, and especially if Fox takes a step back scoring-wise for 2 weeks, he still has the potential to burn you for 35 at any moment. And so you have to game plan for him. But if you're going to game plan for him, what do you do about Sabonis? What do you do about Murray? What do you do about Malik Monk off the bench, who's just been so incredibly tremendous? There's all of these different avenues that this team can beat you. And, they haven't even had one of those games where every single player has an incredible night. And I'll even point back, what was the big blowout against Brooklyn? Terrence Davis had 32 points, right? No other player scored 20. Like, that's the soul of this team all of a sudden, where they got 6, 7, 8 guys that can, at least score in double figures on you. And so you can't track with everybody. And we're going to see some downtimes, like we are. Like I talked to Jay Toriano just a little while ago for a piece I'm going to write while they're on the road, and like he's been the architect of this offense, and he hasn't really had a player like Sabonis before. He did really good things in Charlotte the last couple of years, where that offense was super fun, right? Mm-hmm. Well, they never played any defense at all, and so they weren't a big time winner. But the offense itself was really scary and super fun. Now we're seeing this team that can actually play on the defensive end. And what Jay kept saying was like, look, teams are starting to take certain things away from us, and we're having to figure out how to make adjustments. You can look at, again, the Boston and the Phoenix game. They took away the three-pointer. And then we get to the Bulls game. The Bulls try to take away the interior. So the Kings have to start adjusting on the fly. And if there was anything in the Bulls game that gave me sort of pause, it was that they shot their first 9 shots were three-pointers. And that to me was like, oh no, that's not good. You can't win that way. And then they made an adjustment. And then at one point they were like, they'd shot all these threes, but then on their twos, they were like 8 of 9. And that's how they got right back in the game. So they are finding ways to make adjustments. And that's something, again, that Jay talked about. Like, look, we're going to have tough times. We're going to have to figure things out when we play some of these elite teams that just scheme differently and know how to stop us, and they'll have a game plan for us, and we'll have to grind it out and figure out different ways. But I think that's something that is showing people like, look, this team is not one-dimensional. It's not one person, and there's going to be ways for them to adjust and continue to get better.
I kind of liked it. I'm kind of crazy that way. I like the way they came out. No, I didn't like the results. They weren't making it, but I like them. I mentioned it last week when, they had the 3-game slide, and I said they need to get back to hitting 3-pointers. The part of the reason why they were losing, in my opinion, was they weren't going back to who they were as a team, and that's a lethal offense. But part of that lethal offense was the way they shot the 3-ball. And the reason why I say I like what I saw yesterday is, like, I think one of the games they shot like 15 threes. They shot 15 threes. Like, no, get them up. Get them up. We will adjust as time goes along, like they did yesterday. They got them up, wasn't really hitting. All right, let's go to plan B. But plan A is, if you have an open look, you let that thing fly, because that's who we are. I know it's a little crazy. I know it's crazy to see 9 straight threes to start the game. I get it. But I like the fact that they were not bashful about it. They didn't hesitate. And if they got an open look, they were ready to shoot that. They went 3 of 9, I think, to start the game. If that's 5 of 9, now they're rolling downhill, at that point, and they may have the Bulls on their back. So I understand why people are like, nah, you need to take the ball to the rack. There came to a point when that's what you had to do. But I like them coming out with that mindset that they've had the last 2 home games, maybe 3 home games.
Yeah, I mean, earlier in the season, they were right around like number 3, number 4 in the league in 3-point percentage, and they were number 1 in 2-point field goal percentage. And that's where this team becomes like extremely dangerous. They're tough to beat. Every single night, they're posting 28 to 35 assists, and like that's the thing where, again, the sharing is caring mantra that this team has. It doesn't really matter how they're getting it. And that's where, like, I get what you're saying. You want to see more threes. I'm okay. I'm okay with however the flow of the game goes, as long as it's not being dictated by someone else. And on occasion, this team allows the opposition to dictate who they're going to be on that night. But then we see them snap out of that and break that. And so, again, like, they're doing so many things that are intriguing to watch. Like, again, the assist numbers are second in the league right now, 28.1 assists per game. 28.1 assists per game. Like, it's just wild. Even on games where they lose, they're 31 assists against the Suns. 32 assists. I mean, it's really, really crazy. And again, that just makes them really tough because it's everyone beating them and everyone pulling together. And I don't think we're seeing anyone really take erratic shots, bad shots. Like, they're just playing within the flow, and it's good. And you talked about the threes. Kevin Huerter's been on a stretch like the last 2 weeks where he hasn't been able to hit a three. I think he was 1 of 11 yesterday.
Yeah.
Keep shooting. Like, your team isn't.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if your team's not going to lose a game because you're shooting them out of it, just keep shooting. You'll get it down. He's got a little hitch in it. I don't know what he's doing. But again, this team will be just fine.
You mentioned a moment ago, Hammer, kind of subtly threw this in there. And I'm going to leave you hanging with that because we're giving away tickets to see the Kings the Kings take on Washington. Caller number 3 right now. We'll get you all set up, 916-909-1320. This game is December 23rd. It is the perfect Christmas outing. The Kings versus the Wizards. My family's coming. They want to see the beam in person. Big D-Lo family pick in front of the beam. Lots of pressure on the Kings to win this one. The Kings and Washington. Caller number 3 right now, 916-909-1320.
The Kings versus the state of Washington?
The District of Columbia.
Oh, I was about to say.
Boy, people who don't listen to this show regularly must think we are absolute idiots. You mentioned, James, the Kings being the 16th ranked defense. How much of that, and not that in totality, how much of what we've seen these last 3 games specifically do you think has to do with KZ Okpala being back into the rotation and getting a good chunk of minutes with this team?
I think it helps, but I'm also going to tell you that the stats, just like in the beginning of the season when I kept telling you guys that the offensive stats were crazy, like the true shooting percentage, the effective field goal percentage, all of these things, I kept telling you this offense is way, way better than we think it is. The defense is better than we think it is. And that's because teams have hit shots. Like, we kept seeing those stats. You remember that against that the Kings are allowing the fewest wide open shots in the league, but teams are hitting the highest percentage on their 3-point shots. Well, the laws of averages will catch up eventually, and right now we're starting to see it catch up. Like, the Kings continue to improve. We're seeing big time improvements by not just KZ, who is earning his way onto the court, but by guys like Keegan Murray, who is literally improving every single day as a defender. You're seeing it. That block he had in transition against, I think it was DeRozan, was just nuts, And then the same thing with Davion Mitchell. Like, they've talked about Davion being like this incredible on-ball defender. Well, he has the same problem that a lot of players come into the league, and he knows it, and he's working really hard to fix it. but he's a player that when the ball isn't in front of him, he's waiting for a bus. He's just standing there and not paying attention and hanging out. And that's why he gets beat here and there on backdoor cuts or screens that come quick and stuff like that because he's not engaged in what's happening right in front of him because the guy doesn't have the ball. Well, he's fighting through that and he's learning. And that's something that, again, we usually hear that on the offensive end where players who don't understand how to play off the ball. Well, it's the same thing on the defensive end. He came into the league as a guy who just literally went nuts on whoever had the ball, and they let him do that as a player at the college level. You get to the pros, and man, they'll scheme you out of that. Like you'll be defending the center in the post all of a sudden. You were like, wait, how did this happen? Where did this happen? And you turn around and you got a 7-footer and you're 6 foot tall and you're just getting scored on the whole time. He's got to learn these things, and we're slowly seeing the sort of the fruits of labor play out. Like they really have put a lot of time into teaching and showing these guys film, and everyone is fully engaged and fully on board with how do we get better each and every day. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing it's not just KZ, it's everyone who steps on the court is buying in more and more every day, and that it helps that you're winning because that's how you get more buy-in from these players.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it a number of different times. They would just I feel like after the second game of the season when he had that moment against Davion Mitchell, or Donovan Mitchell, excuse me, the rest of the league just like, all right, well, we're never gonna have a ball handler go one-on-one against him. We'll just screen and roll. And he never got an opportunity to guard somebody one-on-one. So now it was, what are you going to do from there? How are you going to still be effective defensively now that they never let you have your best defensive opportunity, which is going one-on-one with somebody?
We'll talk more about where the Kings are defensively, offensively, where they are headed into this road trip that begins on Wednesday in Milwaukee, and what these wins this weekend may have done for them in the long term. And we'll do that with our 1320 Kings insider and creator of the Kings Beat, James Ham, when we return here on Sacramento Sports Leader, ESPN 1320.
Rich needed to see me real quick. I'll be right back.
Okay. Why the hell anyone coming to see you during the show?
Oh, is he in studio? Oh yeah.
Studio. Yeah, his
crying baby at home.
His home studio isn't, he's kind of moving it around a little bit, so.
Oh, gotcha.
But I was like, it's Monday. It's my home day. I'm still staying home.
Yeah. It's been fun to watch this team, man. It's fun to watch them grow. Yeah. It's fun to watch their confidence.
This was a fun weekend. Like they, beat up on the Clippers without all of those guys, which I know every Kings fan was praying for because we've seen it go the other way so many times. I'm with my man Michigan Wolverines here too. I really love the quick timeouts by Mike Brown because I feel like they accomplish something. I don't ever feel like they're for show or I feel like they accomplish something every time he does it.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And he's sick and tired of the bad starts to the first quarter or the third quarter. Sick and tired of it. Like, yeah.
I bet.
Tyler asked if Fox's defense is the best he's ever been. Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's the most sustained that he's been. But, I think we can say that for a couple of these players. Again, I don't want to overstate it, but and for me, it's kind of a bummer that every time, like, Chimezie Metu can't take a compliment. And so, like, all of a sudden he's become like this rebounding genius, and he's using all of his athleticism and strength to go up and get rebounds. And it's like, oh no, that's kind of what I do. It's like, okay, well, like that's not what the stats say. Like that's really not who you've been. Like how many times I've seen you. I mean, in his career, I think he's got 5 games with 10 rebounds. That's it. Like he had never had a double-double until last year, and he only had like 4 or 5 games with 10 rebounds. And so like you just keep waiting for someone to go, yeah, I'm working on it. Thank you for noticing. But no, it's like, oh no, that's what I do. It's like, okay. Well, I'll tell you, like in 14 minutes per game, you are being extremely productive. And that's a really, really good sign for this team. So, I don't care whose name is on the back of the jersey. It's whose name and whose city's on the front of the jersey. And if you're going to do the job that needs to be done, I don't care if it says Holmes and I don't care if it says Metu. Just go out there. I don't care if it says Lynn. Just go out there and do the job needs to be done. And so many times we see guys that like just make excuses for why it didn't get done or whatever, and that's just not who this team is right now. So it's fun.
Did you guys know that Bronny was in Fresno? Bronny and Sierra Canyon were in Fresno this weekend.
Really?
Yeah, for a little day tournament or something like that. That made me even more upset. Who do I need to talk to in this city? Because we need a college basketball tournament out here. And Fresno can get Bronny. Like
a preseason tournament?
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. I had it all structured out a couple weeks ago when I was at the hospital, just sitting there waiting. It could be an all West Coast California tournament, about 4 teams. You rotate them between Sac State will always be in there, but Sac State and then someone from the Big West, someone from the West Coast Conference, and someone from the WAC. You got like 8 teams that you can choose from, like your San Jose States, your Fresno States, your
Cal.
See, obviously, Cal, Stanford, but I don't think the Pac-12 teams would play in that tournament because they would lose, and they don't want to do that. They would lose to San Diego State.
Yeah.
So they're invited, but I don't think they would come.
I like the preseason tournament stuff. I mean, you got to do it at Golden One, though. You can't go anywhere else. So
I think they get a good turnout if they had that at Golden One. St. Mary's could get involved every now and then. UOP.
Oh, yeah, see? Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Huh. Cal basketball is hot trash this season.
Oh my gosh.
That's what somebody says in Chatty House.
Yeah, they are garbage. Those are young men, but they're not having a good season.
They're not very good.
Did you guys see what happened in Minnesota on Saturday?
The Rudy Gobert stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, oh, that's why everybody hates him. That right there is why everybody hates him.
Yeah.
Oh, nuts.
You a Brock Purdy guy, James?
You got to be now, don't you?
You ain't got no choice.
Kenny Shirt's on the way.
What I don't want to hear is all right.
James, you wanna finish that Brock Purdy thought?
Yeah, the Brock Purdy thought. What I don't want to hear from Kenny is that this is another championship that the 49ers just lost because Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt.
Well,
this is another one that we can just put up there. It's just another trophy.
I usually don't. It's so crazy. I don't even count the ones that don't include a playoff loss. But I mean, when you are looking like you're one of, if not the best team in the league, and now you have to go to the third string quarterback, this may classify. This may classify.
I think we're all sleeping on the Eagles. I don't know why.
You know, James, you might be right. Might be right.
Eagles look really good.
Yesterday was
the
first time where I was like, oh, okay, this team, I think they're a little bit different than I thought.
The Eagles can go.
Jalen Hurts might actually be the MVP.
Yeah.
He may be the MVP.
Yeah, especially if Patrick Mahomes keeps losing to the Bengals. Yeah.
Hey, I'm taking this Niner defense anywhere against anybody.
You don't have to.
That pass rush for the Cowboys is good too.
It is.
I hate to say it, but man, they're starting to piece things together. They've got a big time pass rush. Yeah.
Okay, back to your regularly scheduled program. James Ham here. We're talking Kings basketball. threw this out earlier. Curious what you think of this. You know, they're in that 3-game skid. You got Indiana coming here, an emotional game with only Harrison Barnes willing to admit that. And you put on the performance that you do. Not only do you put on that big performance, but you kind of you mitigate Tyrese Halliburton a little bit. Buddy Hield doesn't have a big night. You get to light the beam. You get to do all of these different things, and it's like, all right, that's good. And we all kind of looked ahead like, man, that road trip is right around the corner. This is a sneaky big back-to-back. We find going into the Clippers game, no Kawhi, no Paul George. There's just guys missing all over the place. And they go in there and they beat the crap out of them. And then kind of a scrappy win that maybe Mike Brown isn't super happy with, considering where they were in the first half compared to where they were in the third quarter. But a win nonetheless on a second night of a back-to-back. So you're able to sweep the Saturday, Sunday. And throwing in the Indiana game, James, I feel like this might be a team that as they win more games, they get better. They get more confident in everything that they're doing. And this is a perfect time, if there's any semblance of truth to that idea, this is the perfect time for their confidence to be so high heading into this tough 6-game road trip.
Yeah, I mean, you needed this 3-game win streak because, I mean, the road is just going to be it's violent. The schedule just comes at you and just slaps you around. And so if I'm really looking at this, I thought that they would be lucky to split the weekend. This is not a team that's played well on the second night of a back-to-back at all season long. And I'll point to something Mike Brown said, too, in postgame. He said, like, this was one of his favorite wins because it was an ugly game. It was ugly, and it got mucked up. And he's like, okay, like, we can win. We can win this game. And, you know, they followed through. They held to their principles, and they found a way against, you know, a couple of guys who got crazy hot. And, you know, I just thought that they took everyone else out of their game, you know, like outside of DeRozan and Zach LaVine, like there were a lot of like no-shows by the Bulls. And I thought that was on the Kings. Like the Kings really did like turn the screws on that team. And when they needed to get stops against those guys, they went and got stops against them late and really kind of slowed things down with guys like KZ Okpala and Davion Mitchell. So like you got to win like 82 game schedule. You're going to have a handful of blowouts each way. You're going to have a handful of, or maybe 20 games that are decided by 3 or 4 points. Then you're going to have maybe 10 games that are just flat out ugly, and you hope that you survive. And so the Kings are finding out different ways to win each and every type of these games, and they're finding ways to stay in the other games. You know, there's only, I really think this season we can point to one game where they got stomped, and I think they had a lead in the third quarter against Boston. Mm-hmm. And so that's the one game where they really played poorly for a huge stretch. And so, like, that's good. The fact that this team competes so well that they come out and they show you something every single night, and it doesn't matter if the shots are falling or not, they're going to be in it and they're going to find ways to fight with you. I think it's really interesting to watch, especially, like, again, like, look at Sabonis. You talked about he had 4 shots, and we talk about Herter going 1 of 11. Like, 40% of your starting lineup had a bad game, and you won, and you won pretty convincingly. So, like, that's a big deal. This team is not showing that they're just one-trick pony, that they can do multiple things, that they can beat you in multiple ways, and that they can get stops when they need it and start to show that they're improving on defense. So, yeah, I mean, there's a possibility that this defense, goes back up into the mid-20s. There's also a possibility that this defense keeps getting better, and, we just keep giving them more time in the pot to simmer, and they'll keep learning and getting better. And then I fully expect Monty McNair to still be surfing and waiting for that one moment to pounce and go get that extra piece that they might need to get them over the hump.
Did this weekend with that Clippers game and that Bulls game, and especially the Clippers, the way they had to put the roster out with no Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, the thing that really impressed me and I was happy to see from this Kings team is they did what they were supposed to do. Like, beat the hell out of them. Don't even, it's the NBA and these guys. Nah, man. Like, you guys, we're good. You guys, as currently put together, are not good enough to play in the same game as us. we're going to smack you from the start. And even with the Bulls, the reason why I asked you the question about whether you thought they were going to lose or not is because they're the Bulls. They're better than the Bulls, and they play like yesterday. They handle business, and that's just a really good sign for this team moving forward. You hear Malik Monk after the game talk about we're legit. We're legit. You know, they're doing everything right now that a legit team does, not just winning games, but if you're going up against teams that you should handle, they're handling them. And aside from maybe, I guess, Detroit, they're handling them relatively easily.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, look, there are going to be times where this team gets smacked around. It's going to happen. I mean, it's a long season, and we just saw a 3-game losing streak, and the fact that this team has the intestinal fortitude to survive a 3-game losing streak and bounce right back. That to me is showing the resiliency that this team has lacked for 15, 16 years. That's what it is. They have resiliency. They have a common goal, and they push forward together. So I really do believe that the one good thing about this team is that they've just have this fire, this competitive fire to get better together, and to pull this thing together. They have a common goal, which is to snap the playoff streak, the playoff drought, and I know a lot of teams here in Sacramento have had that, but this just feels different for the first time. And I hope they can hold it together all season long. It makes things more interesting for all of us to cover and to talk about. But at the same time, this is step one of what should be a multi-level process of getting better in one season. We've already seen them show that they can compete. We've seen them learn how to win close games. We've seen them fight through adversity when the tough times hit. We've seen them come through and all of a sudden show up. That we've seen them do things that we haven't seen in years, which is beat a team like the Clippers who are missing their 2 stars. These are things that are signs of growth for me as someone who's covered this team forever that we just haven't got to see forever in a long, long time. So it is good to see sort of the building process that we're seeing.
Is there anything that you've seen at all that makes you believe this isn't sustainable? The way that they're winning these games, the way that they're competing in the games, we just talked about KZ Okpala and Davion Mitchell and the growth that we've seen, within just the defensive side of the ball during the year. All of that feels sustainable to me.
No, I think so too. I think it feels sustainable, and I the other thing I'll keep saying, it feels like they're just hitting the tip of the iceberg on where they can be. So again, talking to Jay Triano, the offense is just in stage 1, right? They're working through the basics of this offense, and then after they get through the basics, there are all of these other elements of counters off of the moves that they have right now, which they haven't even got to. Think back to the 2002 Sacramento Kings and that offense that Rick Adelman had, and you get 4 years into an offense like this, and you got a core group of players who have been together, and all of a sudden you can't stop them because you don't know what the counter is to the counter, and that's where we're heading towards. And then on the defensive end, I felt like this team was going to be better the entire time, and they're starting to show up and be better. But again, it doesn't happen without 100% buy-in from some of these young players. If we don't have 100% buy-in from Chimezie Metu and Davion and KZ, and even Trey Lyles when he steps on the floor, and Terrence Davis when he steps on the floor, if you don't have 100% buy-in from each one of those guys, then this thing could spin out really quickly. And so far, that's what's happening. They're giving you what you need each and every night. And some nights they're going to play 8 minutes, some nights they're going to play 28. And they've just got to be ready for whatever's there. And that's what, again, the sustainability piece is the buy-in. As long as they're bought in and they're fighting for Mike Brown and for their teammates, then I think we're going to see this team sitting, where they're at, maybe a little bit higher. Maybe they can get 10 games over 500. That would be shocking. All of a sudden, if they're actually pushing for a high 40s or a 50 mark win season. But we're such a long ways from that, and you got to ride out the ebbs and flows of the season.
Can we talk about my main man, Malik Monk, and what he has been able to do? I mean, just balling out of his mind. And it seems like we obviously have talked about him a little bit before, when we get together. But he continues to not only play at a high level, but it seems like every week he's getting a little bit better and he's showing a little bit more that he has in his bag. And Damian talked about it earlier. And aside from just his play on the court, in the locker room, you get the feel that he's the leader. Like not necessarily, being the best player, but he's a guy that everybody, when he speaks, people listen or they follow. Do you get that sense from being around this team?
Yeah, what I get the sense is he's the icebreaker. He's the guy, he's the glue guy. So I don't want to say he's the leader. I want to say he's the guy who is tying everyone together. He's the one that makes everyone laugh. He's the one that brings just an incredible spirit when, you've had a rough couple of days, when your body's not feeling good and you still got to show up. You walk in the door and there's Malik ready to smile and laugh and get you going. And that's such a breath of fresh air. And I don't know that the Kings knew that this is who they were getting. And, like if the Lakers knew that this is who they were getting, they wouldn't have let him go at all. They would have done everything in their power to keep him. But I think when you have big personalities like a LeBron James, and like some of the other guys, like Russell Westbrook, guys like Malik Monk, they can just kind of be like, okay, he's the class clown. He makes us laugh, but it doesn't have that impact. When he gets onto a team that maybe doesn't have that huge personality, then his personality is sort of able to expand and people start to glob onto what he's doing. And on the court, he's just been phenomenal. He made that pass to De'Aaron Fox, and that was coming down to our end of the court. I was watching, and Keegan Murray was cutting baseline. I thought he was going to Keegan Murray. And when he wrapped that pass around to De'Aaron Fox on the opposite end of the court, he did a skip pass basically across the court. It was so incredibly phenomenal. And you were just sitting there like, I can't believe he just saw that. And then he started getting a little loose because he got some confidence in him. He started doing crazy things. But it's so much fun. I mean, that dunk he had was by far the dunk of the year. And then he did the stare down, which is whoever he dunked on, he does the stare down to everybody.
Kobe White.
Oh, okay. So it was Kobe White. So that's what he was doing. He said, yeah, that's what he does. So I gave him a little of that back. But just the little things that he's doing, and it's usually in the moment. Does he take some ill-advised threes on occasion? Yeah. But you can live with one guy being that guy because what he's doing is he's uplifting everybody. And I think that for guys like Davion, it's taken so long for him to figure out how to play with Monk because he's just not used to not having the ball in his hands at all. And Monk has the ball all the time. He's taken that much time to figure it out, but all of a sudden we're seeing Davion figure out how to play with him and start to thrive. We're seeing Chimezie Metu with these incredible alley-oops from Monk. Every single game we're getting one now, so the chemistry's building there. We're seeing the chemistry building with Sabonis and Monk where they get in a two-man game and start destroying teams, and there's nothing you can do about it. So, yeah, he's really been he might be the most important player for the Kings. I think it's still Sabonis, but just the personality and the way he's coming in, especially for a team that historically is bad in the first quarter and bad. They lack energy in the first quarter. They lack energy in the third quarter. He steps on the court, and if you're not ready, he's just going to run you over. He's gonna run right past you and dunk, and he's having a good time. And I think he's being a player that drags everyone with him in some of those games.
I feel like he said it. He's not going to let this team splinter apart after 3 losses, and it feels like he is just the guy who galvanizes this group. The dude who we saw be vocal the last couple of games, particularly the Clippers game, De'Aaron Fox. De'Aaron Fox has taken 16 free throws in the last 4 games, and I think by Saturday he had enough of it. He had picked up a technical foul. I really thought he was going to get 2 of them because he didn't exactly stop talking after the first technical was assessed, or the only technical. He didn't stop talking after that technical was assessed. And when they showed the replay of the call that De'Aaron was frustrated about, it was a pretty egregious call. I actually really like that De'Aaron got vocal with the officials for, letting some of these fouls on him slide. But based on yesterday's game, it didn't seem to help at all.
I think De'Aaron's fighting just some fighting through it right now. He's trying to figure it out. He's in one of those valleys that comes with the peaks that he has, and he put a lot into getting off to a fast start, and maybe wore himself out a little bit, and so he's fighting through it right now. And I think at the same time, when you're fighting through it and things aren't going your way, and you're struggling a little bit, you're scuffling a little bit, you start looking for people to yell at, outside of yelling at yourself again and again. But I think that's where we're at with him. He's still super confident. He still thinks he can get a shot anytime he wants. But at the same time, he also knows that, he does have to stand up for himself. If he wants to be an all-star, he needs those calls. He needs to not have stretches, a 2-week stretch where his numbers, fall off to, 17 points a game or whatever it is for the last like 6 games, 7 games. So when he's getting frustrated, I think it's more than just getting frustrated with a bad call, which he does get all the time. Like he gets like just, I mean, I can't wait till they go up against Philadelphia if James Harden's in the building and, you sneeze in that guy's direction and he gets a foul call, or Luka Doncic. How many foul calls do you get? And everyone on the whole court's like, what exactly did they just call there? And Luka's like, oh yeah, it happened. Yeah, it happened. I know I'm totally out of shape, but it happened. And like, he's at the free throw line the whole game. Well, Fox is sitting there like, man, I am literally the fastest guy in the court. I'm busting through. I'm getting wide open. And then guys are hammering me and I'm not getting any calls. And I don't get why he's not, starting to see that uptick, especially since he is being mentioned for all-star games and stuff like that. But he's got to fight through it. And I think he'll be fine. I think we're going to see another run here from him where he's just off the hook and he's just so good. And he'll be right back to where he was.
Hey, James, what do you think about Zach LaVine on the Kings?
That almost happened. They signed him to an offer sheet. And the Bulls matched, and he didn't want to come here anyways. He said that afterwards.
He would not be here if that deal had gone through.
Yeah, I mean, he's fun and he's electric, and when he gets hot, it's crazy. But you got to live with the fact that that guy is the first time he plays defense. Next time he plays defense, that'll be the first time. Like, he just does not engage. He doesn't like. He's a great, wonderful scorer, but he's more of a guy who should be playing off the bench because he just doesn't defend anybody, and that's why, his teams don't win.
I don't trust his knee either, by the way.
No.
Who's I mean, we got like 2 minutes. Who's the piece?
What's the piece?
What's the next piece?
Who's the third man?
Sure, there's another piece.
Yeah, they still need a guy who can a 3-and-D 4. They still need a 3-and-D 3, a 3-and-D 4. They need one more guy. And I know KZ's like playing really well. And again, like Chimezi's playing really well, but there are players out there that would fit this roster and help them get better. And right now you're doing it on teamwork and, sharing, and everybody's taking steps up. I even look like Chimezi Metu's like offensive rating, defensive rating according to Basketball Reference. For the last game, the Bulls game, he was a 149 offensive rating and a 92 defensive rating in 12 minutes. Yes. And he hasn't missed a shot in 2 games. I think he's 8 of 8, but even before that, the game before that, he was big. He had 2 8 rebounding games.
Yeah, he's 8 of 8. Yeah, he was 5 of 5 and 3 of 3.
Yeah, and the game before that, I think he's 3 of 5. So like,
stand up.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's great. And it's like, man, accept a compliment. You're playing well. Like, we're not messing with you. Like, and it's not like when we say harsh things, it's not that we're saying that you're just a bad basketball player. We're just saying like, you have to fit into some sort of, you have to accept a role if you're going to be a good NBA player,
Look at James knowing the clock, knowing it's time to wrap up, and we've got it. Look at James Ham. That is a professional right there. We appreciate you so much for being with us. Make sure you become a premium subscriber over at thekingsbeat.com so you can get all of the great content James drops over there. Check out the Kings Beat YouTube channel and podcast as well.